Harris with you. Congratulations to Giannis and everyone in Milwaukee, as he has agreed and announced on Twitter that he will sign a 5-year, $228 million supermax extension, putting him in Milwaukee for years to come. Apparently, it was a very thoughtful decision. The deadline was December 21st, so a few days early. A huge sigh of relief from Milwaukee and the Bucks franchise. And here with insight is Adrian Wojnarowski. So what more can you tell us?
Hannah, I just talked to his agent, Alex Saratzis, with Octagon. And just as you said, Hannah, this was a decision he had to think long and hard about, and ultimately got back to the fact that I think ultimately for him, he feels like he grew up in Milwaukee, and he has a great affinity, a love for that organization, and believes that he can win there. And I think and win in an organization that he feels, in a community he feels very strongly about. The idea of going elsewhere and being part of a super team ultimately didn't appeal to him, Hannah, as much as it did continuing to try to win in Milwaukee. He's had a chance in this training camp and early preseason to see in action and on the floor and get to know some of his new teammates, and likes the direction of where this is headed. But 5 years, $228 million. I'm also told, Hannah, in that extension, he'll have a player option, an ability to opt out of the deal after the 4th year of the contract.
So when they were unable to execute this sign and trade for Bogdanović, that made a lot of people sort of nervous. Were they going to be able to put together a group of players where he felt like they could start to really match their regular season expectations and have more postseason success with this team, with the championship being the goal? Are they done? Do they feel like all the pieces are in place now, Woj?
Well, certainly for this season, this is your team. Bringing in Drew Holiday from New Orleans was certainly, an impactful signing or an impactful trade for them, and they'll work very hard to re-sign Holiday. That becomes a lot easier, I think, from Drew Holiday's perspective, knowing that Giannis is going to be there, but having Chris Middleton locked up and players like Brook Lopez back, this is a core he believes in, and a group, again, that has had most of this group together. Obviously, there's some changes now that have had great regular season success. They've got to figure out how to translate that into the postseason, but his commitment is to do it in Milwaukee, stay there. And, ultimately, he knew what the options were going to be for him in free agency next summer, and decided that what he has in Milwaukee beats the rest of it. And certainly that contract puts him at the very top of the list of contracts that anyone has done in league history. And now Giannis Antetokounmpo, who was drafted by the Bucks, who signed an extension, now has signed a second extension that takes him through the prime of his career with Milwaukee. For John Horster, general manager, and owner Mark Lazary, this is a huge coup for Milwaukee, and I think for smaller market teams all over the NBA to be able to keep a player of this stature. This is a big day for the Bucks.
I mean, this is where he literally grew up. This is his home here in the United States. I mean, he feels so emotionally tied to the city. But you just mentioned being a smaller market, and we've seen it again and again, that players eventually leaving markets like this for maybe more glitz, maybe more glamour, to team up with another superstar, to chase that title, to chase the lights. Why is this such a unique situation?
Well, I just think it speaks to who Giannis Antetokounmpo is, and how he was raised in Athens, and his family, and just how he views loyalty and commitment. And I think part of what took him maybe more time to make this decision was he takes very seriously the idea of making a commitment, that it isn't just, well, hey, I can sign and then I could force a trade in a couple of years. James Harden has 3 years left on his contract, as an example, and can force a trade and likely will at some point get out of Houston. He looks at it differently, and in his mind, making a commitment is just that. And so he had to think through this. This was a huge decision for him, and believing that he could win with the Bucks, and now he's done that, and he's committed, and they can continue now to build a roster around Giannis in Milwaukee.
Yep, has the MVP, has the best regular season record, and now a chance to really do something special for the history of that franchise and win a championship at some point. It'll be a fascinating few years, and Woj, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Hannah, Giannis is a two-time reigning league MVP. The scary thing is he is still improving. His scoring and rebounding averages have gone up every season in the NBA. Last season, he averaged 29.5 points and 13.6 boards a game. He is the first player to hit those averages for a season since Shaq did it back in the 99-2000 season. All right.
Yes, that reflects
that would be nice.
Their regular season success. So we do have Malika. I think her phone is working. We're going to get back to Woj in just a moment. But Malika, from your perspective, what went into the thought process here for Giannis?
Well, Hannah, testing, 1, 2, 3, making sure you can hear me.
Yes.
What a big day.
I got you loud and clear.
Big day in Milwaukee. Look, I've been getting texts from people around the organization in the days leading up to this decision. What do you think he's going to do? This is a moment where people within the franchise, I imagine fans are rejoicing. This is something where Giannis has taken his time with his decision to sign this supermax contract. We always knew that he was dedicated to and loved the city of Milwaukee. The question remained whether or not he felt that he could win there. And by signing this contract today, he has affirmed that the moves that Milwaukee made in this offseason, that general manager John Horst made, the commitment that he has to the city, all of that has driven him to put pen to paper. But this was not a decision that he made willy-nilly. We saw him carefully weigh the pros and cons of what's going on here. So at the end of the day, what Bucks fans should feel good about is this wasn't just a loyalty signature. This was a signature because he believes this franchise really has a shot at winning the NBA title in this window within his Supermax contract.
And can you just refresh us all after this very quick offseason and really, frankly, yet another postseason disappointment that didn't match the regular season expectations there in the bubble where you were covering basketball the entire time? What were some of the things that this franchise did to make this more of an attractive place for Giannis to chase a championship in the years to come?
Well, this was always an attractive place, Hannah, from an emotional standpoint. This is the team that drafted him. This is the team that validated that he was going to be able to have a home in the NBA, the team that gave him an avenue to be able to provide for his family. But in this specific offseason, really the headliner trade was getting Jrue Holiday in Milwaukee. That meant shipping out Eric Bledsoe. That meant shipping out George Hill and a couple of picks. But what that did was upgrade them on both ends of the floor. They felt that they landed a really solid defender, another passing option, another option to set up people on the floor to take some focus off of Antetokounmpo. And then after that, they rounded out the roster with some depth, with a lot of minimum signings in their bench. They attempted to trade for Bogdanovic. That fell through. That left a question mark, and now Giannis has put an end to any questions that maybe folks had about whether or not he felt that these were the moves they needed to make.
We've seen other players take jumps out of smaller markets once they get a chance at that max deal, maybe go for something, more glitzy, maybe joining other superstars in an effort to finally win an NBA title. I know that you said that this was well beyond his emotional attachment to the city of Milwaukee, but nonetheless, this has been his home in the United States. Can you just speak to his relationship with Milwaukee and the fans there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is someone who, you hear stories coming out of Milwaukee where early in his career, Giannis is walking to the practice facility because he has sent every penny that he had back to Greece so his family can be taken care of before they move to the United States. This is a guy who didn't fly first class, Adrian Wojnarowski reported, on his own until he signed not this deal, but the deal before that. And when he was walking to the arena, Hannah, it was a couple that pulled over and offered to give him a ride because they recognized the then rookie for the Milwaukee Bucks. That is how this city has embraced him, and he has tried to do that right back by going to different events, by marching in the hiatus from March to this summer. He was marching in some of the racial justice movements that were happening there. He's someone who is invested in Milwaukee. He said at those rallies, at those marches, that he wanted to see Milwaukee turn into a place where he would like to raise his 10-month-old son, Liam. That is the relationship that this superstar has with this city.
And you mentioned his early years, Malika, when he really didn't take any appearances. He didn't do big sit-down interviews. He wasn't promoting himself. He was really looking inward.